First of all, to the student body who are here today. They're my prime concern, and no offense to our wonderful veterans, but if we do not have a generation of young people that show enough interest to be here, we have no Army for the future. Who would volunteer for any Army if there weren't the heroes that they want to emulate? So God bless our students and God bless our veterans of the United States. And there's something to be said for a World War II veteran. I don't know if it affected you like it did me, but Mr. James Crouch stood here now coming up on 90 years old. I can only imagine that I could live that long and look that good, be that strong and that sharp. I'm going to say, Mr. Crouch, thank you, but I didn't have to go to Berlin or Tokyo. The definition of post-traumatic stress is a normal response to an abnormal situation. So I think it's normal to respond to an abnormal situation like going with the stress that we're left with. I'm not disordered, and they're not disordered. We may have issues, but we overcome our issues. We fought to be free, and we will not be denied the freedom we bled for. Am I right? We will not be. I went off to war. I was in Vietnam for 8 months, and on the 8th month, something amazing took place. I'd already been through something, picked up a white phosphorus hand grenade. It burns at 5,000 degrees, and I pulled the pin. And I drew back, and I prepared to throw that grenade. And in 1 second, my life changed, and I want all you young people to hear me. It only takes a second. It takes 1 second. One bad decision. You can crawl in that car with somebody that's been drinking. You can smell it. He's behind the wheel, and the worst decision of your life is getting in the car. I guess there's the worst decision is you be the one drinking that gets in the car to drive. Drinking and driving has killed more Americans than all of our wars put together. And I'm here today to do my best to help you to make a decision to stop it, to never, ever drink and drive an automobile. And texting is just as bad. Stop it. I find it amazing enough that people will sacrifice their lives for a country they believe in, but to sacrifice it for a text or a bottle of alcohol doesn't make any sense to me. That day, when I pulled that grenade back to throw, I didn't know I was in the crosshairs of a sniper. He squeezed off around, shooting at my head, and he missed. He hit my hand. And the grenade that I was about to throw exploded inches from my face. It blew my face off. It blew my hair off, my ear off, ripped my chest off, blew my thumb off. I could see my heart beating, but I couldn't find my thumb. That's not my thumb. They made that out of my hip. I don't know what it is. A fifth, part front, part hip. But I'm a seven. Okay, yeah. Don't suck your hip. That's right. 1969, but it was blown off in South Carolina a few months ago in a high wind. I was speaking at the Citadel. Can you imagine how embarrassing when I took off after my hair and the dog beat me to it? Stinking mud brought it back to me. He knew I lost it. I guess it's pretty awkward. My ear's artificial. I should probably predicate what I'm going to say about telling you. In my work with the Department of Defense as a resiliency coach, I was sent into the war zones. All of them. I go all over the world, wherever the military is, and that included Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. But when I went into Iraq one night about 2 in the morning, I was on tour with some of the special forces, and I was walking up the ramp of a C-130. We were that night transferring some detainees. And to get on that aircraft, it is a military law. You have to put on your battle rattle, they name it, your armor. So I threw on my armor. And when I did, it hit my ear and knocked it off. It fell off. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's dark. My rank given to me by the Air Force so I could work with the military, I had to have a sponsor, and the Air Force was my sponsor. They ranked me as an 07, which is a 1-star general. I don't get paid for it, I have no authority. It's just a protocol. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, I gave my first and only order. My ear hit that ramp, which has holes, divots, channels, rollers, it's a mess. My ear, that cost $25,000 approximately to make, is laying on that ramp. I gave my order. Don't move. Everybody stopped, even the high-ranking officials on board. Then I had to fess up and said my ear fell off. Which y'all find. Have you ever seen Navy SEALs at 2 o'clock in the morning down on their knees, padding around trying to find an ear? I started laughing. One of them looked up and said about 4 or 5 cuss words and said, "You're just making us look like idiots. Your ear didn't fall off." I said, "No, it did. But one of them is close. I can hear you breathing." Now, I thought that was funny too. But wait till you hear what one of them said. "Whoa, dude," he said, "is it me?" You know, probably the best thing that ever happened to me was that day in Vietnam when that sniper took that shot. No, I'm not a masochist, and I don't want to self-inflict injury and damage to my body. And I'm not an advocate, and this is not a message of apologetics to go out and get yourself hurt so you have a story to tell. But it happened. And I think it may have been one of the best experiences of my life because it gave me a connection to our wounded heroes today. And when they look at me and when I speak to them, they know I know what I'm talking about. When I talk about suffering, they understand. And I tell them of the day it hurt so bad I put my face in the pillow in the Army Medical Center and I screamed. I didn't want anyone to hear, and I begged that pillow to absorb my scream of pain. When I lifted my head to take a breath, I screamed again, didn't care who heard, because when I looked down, my face had come off and it was stuck to the pillowcase. Oh, I can talk about suffering and I can break your heart and make you cry. I've been in public speaking long enough to know how to do just exactly that. But you see, it's not my suffering that's most important today. What's most important today is I overcame the suffering. I beat the odds. We're sitting here today because no weapon formed against us could prosper in those jungles of Vietnam. No weapon formed against you can take you down when you have a heart bigger than your enemies. And I stood for what I believed in. And I stand for what it is today because I fought for the right. I bled for the right to be able to speak in my freedom of speech, to worship in my freedom of religion, to write in my freedom of press, to come together in this assembly in my freedom of assembly. All these freedoms that are ours, as has already been said, were not free, that have cost a horrible price. There won't be a Taliban hand grenade down this aisle or an Al-Qaeda truck bomb in that parking lot. Because last night when I was sleeping, when you were resting comfortably, so that we could attend this event today and speak our piece, the United States military sat up all night watching over us to keep us free. God bless you. Phosphorus burns in water. Ask the vet. I'm telling you. I burned in that river unabated. My skin was all around me. I guess you could say I was beside myself. Get it? I needed to pull myself together. The helicopter landed to pick me up. They rolled me onto a stretcher. I caught the stretcher on fire while they were running to the helicopter. It ripped open. I fell through on my head. You ever had one of those days? The dust-off that picked me up that day would take me on a journey of amazing experience. They took me ultimately to Japan, but not on a helicopter. And they flew me to Japan on that giant C-141 hospital aircraft. I didn't know what was going to be awaiting at the other end. Maybe the death angel. I certainly did not expect to survive because when the grenade exploded and I hit that water, I never knew if I was coming out of the water or not. But in that hospital in Japan, I did a very stupid thing. I asked for a mirror, and they very stupidly brought one. They held it over my face, and I looked up with one eye I could see with, and this side of my head was swollen to my shoulder, and this side was a skull. And my mind told me, she's not going to love you. She will never, ever, ever consent to continue to be your wife. And to lose Brenda was the greatest fear that I had ever experienced. And I thought to myself, maybe if I take myself out, if I take my life, I will get me out of her misery. And I made a terrible choice, young people, horrible decision, totally wrong. I decided that day that I would take my life. I would end it, and this would never have been a story you would hear. So when they walked away with the mirror, they walked away with my hope, and to lose hope is the final straw. I had no gun or knife. I didn't have handfuls of pills, no razor blades. How do you carry yourself? I didn't have a rope. I pulled the tube, and I laid my head back, and I waited to die. And I got hungry. It's the wrong tube. You know how embarrassing it is to pull lunch? You smell one enchilada, you're plugging that tube back in. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to die. And I want every teenager that's going to hear me. Suicide is not your solution. Suicide is not your solution. Don't do for your enemies what they don't have the power to do. Some of you have been quite close with me. I've never been molested. A little 15-year-old girl came to me. She said, "Mister, I've got to talk to you alone." Out of all those students in that school that day, this one kid would change my life. I said, "Sweetheart, I don't talk to girls alone. Get your counselor, let's talk." So we went to his office, and there we sat. And she burst into tears almost. It was a violent statement. I stepped at him ready 3 times, and I'm going to kill him. Now it's my turn. I burst into tears, and she reached across her desk, and she wiped a tear off my cheek. And she said, "Nobody has ever cried for me. You don't touch a child. You don't touch a girl." I blew it. I jumped up, threw my arms around her, snotted all over her sleeve. She's patting me on the back saying, "It's okay, mister, you'll be fine." You see, there's 2 places in life to have scars. On the outside like me, and on the inside like some of you. But a scar is evidence you got hurt. It's evidence you got over it. And I want to say to every one of you that have been hurt in your life, use your pain to make somebody else's gain. Don't give up. Someone wrote a poem once that said this: "Hast thou no scar? Then thou hast not traveled far." A scar tells my story. Teenagers come up and say, "What happened to your face?" And I tell them, "I was burned bobbing for French fries." Men are a little different. They come up and they try to soften the blow of that harsh question of what happened to you. They say, "Well, looks like you got hurt there, fella. What happened to your face?" I said, "It looks like, whoa, dude, what happened to your mother?" You know you're ugly when you're born. The doctor slapped your mom. See, I found out that with a scar, I have a story to tell, and people will ask, but I hate pity. I despise pity, so I throw that pity off with humor. And I laugh about it. And people find that remarkable. But that remarkability is for good or bad or ugly, it's remarkable. I hate pity. But I can use a scar and I can reach a little girl's broken heart who has been hurt worse than me. And she says, if you make it, I can make it. That's what scars are all about. It's your evidence of empathy. It's your passport into the broken life of a kid somewhere. And every veteran here needs to hear me. Tell your story. Let somebody know the price of freedom and never let it die because we were so quiet about it. Well, we don't talk about it. Talk about it, for God's sake. Let these kids know what it took for them to sit in the class.